Hello guys, welcome back to another video. My name is David, and for today I really wanted to address the designers out there. So for those who don't know, my name is David. I'm studying design and architecture at MIT, and we can all agree that right now is a very interesting time to be a designer. Everything that's happening with tech and AI, and obviously there's many types of designers. Architecture is an example, fashion design, industrial, product. It could be digital product, physical product, there's definitely different types. And then you can go into the details as a UX, UI. Historically, it was important to kind of differentiate the differences between design. And I think it still matters. But I think more and more now, the fields are becoming, or the disciplines are becoming more convergent, or it's more important to become multidisciplinary, because the value of design is the ability to think outside the box, to make connections with other fields, to work with, engineering, sales, marketing, product, obviously. So it is important to have this flexibility, this adaptability as a designer. And, I can talk for days about why design is important, because that's my bread and butter. I'm a designer myself, and it's the field that I fell in love with. But for this video, I really wanted to touch on maybe two things. One of them is, what should you do, I think, in my opinion, if you're a designer in today's age with what's happening in AI, and if you want how to better position yourself in the market. And also, why design has never become more important. And those two ideas are very interconnected. And I'll try to keep this video short because I have an event later, like tonight, and I just wanted to make this video quick before I leave, and get it off my mind. But if we start with what you can do to better position yourself as a designer, the obvious thing is you need to be fluent in AI. And I put AI in brackets because it's a cringe thing to say, AI is such a buzzword. But I think for the most part, I think the idea is that you want to be fluent in the technicalities of what a software engineer does for a living. Because, I have tons of friends who are software engineers and computer scientists. My brother studies computer science. Most of my friends are engineers. I'm the only designer of my old friends from high school and all that stuff. But really, it's very tough. The market is very difficult right now for engineers because of AI, because it's those coding tasks are becoming automated. Programming is becoming more universal. It's becoming more closer to natural language. And so if you can speak a language, if you can speak English and write in English, then you can code now. And the term vibe coding, became a big thing now. But I used to vibe code, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Back at McGill when I was an undergrad in a computational design lab, when ChatGPT just came out 2 years ago, publicly, I was the first to use it. And I tell myself coding and all that stuff beforehand. And I took a few front-end programming classes. But when that came out, I was like, this is the perfect way to add to my workflow in order to enhance my coding abilities. And if you're like me, I think most designers are not the most proficient in programming. And it's completely normal because design and programming are two different ways of thinking. One is very linear and very systematic. I mean, both are very systematic, but programming is, you're dealing with text. Ultimately, you're dealing with kind of abstracted text and language, which is usually a text language. Whereas with design, it's mostly visual based. It's a visual language. It's diagrammatic in a more visual sense, and it's very spatial all the times. So it's very two distinct ways of thinking, but they're two different skills, right? Obviously, if you're a designer, your natural tendency, your natural skills and advantage was mostly something that was spatial or visual related. But I think now is the best time to try to at least learn programming through AI, through applications like ChatGPT and Claude and all that stuff, Gemini. You really want to at least be comfortable with it, because the advantage now as a designer is that you can, whatever idea that you have, and that's what we are, designers, we're the ones who, you know, make or build ideas and have the ability to connect different themes together in different topics and problem solve using creativity, using, outside of the box thinking, making references, making analogies, looking back through precedents, kind of making iterations and iterations, having that fast cycle. It's a messy process. Some describe it as a artistic process, but that's the beautiful thing about design is it's not linear. You have to come up with something that has never been done before, or that has been done, and you're trying to improve it in a way that's not about optimizing, because that's what engineering is. You're usually optimizing one variable, or you're using the scientific method to just lock that in and just try to, validate your hypothesis. In design, you have many hypotheses, but because everything's interdependent and, when you change something, it changes a lot of things, you're constantly considering many, many variables at the same time. And so it's a messy process. And I won't go into detail about all that stuff, but for you to understand that AI is the best tool, not only for, executing your tasks, which I think, if you use it for coding, that's what it does, is like it will give you the code and you can use it to build something. But if you use it as a creative partner, a design partner, where it's almost like you have another designer next to you and you're asking it, like, what do you think about this? Like, can you give me ideas about this? Critique it. And then you have to be self-critical. The best way to use those tools like ChatGPT and Claude is you need to be very, very self-aware and self-critical and never take things for granted. It is a great tool for critical thinking. And for writers, it's the same thing. If you use it for the brainstorming part and the designing part of like looking at the whole system, doing a bit of research on the side, and then validating some things, and then you also have to fact check everything at the same time. You have to do your due diligence. But if you use it as a designer for that creative part of your process, it won't like 10x your workflow necessarily, because it's a non-linear process. But it will at least train your mind to think of things differently. It will make you more creative. It will open up your mind. It will make you more self-aware. So that's on one end, in the ideation part and the conceptual part of a process of designing. If you have an idea for a startup or an idea for a product, or for just your own personal life, how can I optimize parts of my life and my workflows and my habits and that kind of stuff, or for any project you're working on, it's really great. Now, when it comes to coding, it's really a game changer, because traditionally, designers would make mock-ups, prototypes, low fidelity, high fidelity, whatever it is, on like Figma or like Sketch or whatever tools, or it would be by hand, or it would be like if you're an architect, it would be renders, drawings, all that stuff, and then you would give whatever it is, those ideas, those plans, those blueprints to an engineer or to a builder. And then the engineer would build it. They would follow along those blueprints. And that's how they collaborated together. Because there's some skills that like you just had to divide, because it's too much to take for one person. But now, because of how fast you can learn those things, and because of the fact that you can delegate those technical tasks to AI, if you're a designer and you have those ideas and you have the blueprints, you can give those blueprints to ChatGPT and Claude, and then it will literally tell you how to build it. If you are willing to put into work and to, be a beginner again and have that beginner mindset and be selfless and just learn, how to program, like open the IDE and then start coding. And then obviously you'll have to do some self-learning on the side, like some fundamental skills of like how to have clean code and all, like what's the best principles and the best practices and all that stuff. So really, that's something I would highly, highly suggest everyone or every designer to do is, try to understand how an engineer thinks. And you can do that by asking AI. And then as you gain more knowledge in that field, you will see that you will be able to basically not do the, like, obviously not be a one person business. Like, you still need, like, there's some skills that engineers have that, like, it takes years and years of experience and it's very specific knowledge and very case dependent. But I would argue that for the majority of what you need to have like MVP for a product or for a startup, or if you want to just have a building prototype that's functional, you can have users test, or you can have people test, and that can become like a product that you sell, a web app, or whatever it is. And I'm mostly talking like digital products. Unfortunately, we don't have AI for physical products. I mean, you could. I think like for laser cutting, 3D printing, like you can ask ChatGPT for that kind of stuff. So you can prototype some physical mockups. But I'm talking mostly like software for like designers who work with like, in the digital world, like graphic designers, product designers, UX, UI, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that really is like, if you can give yourself some time to study what it is that engineers do, and then as a designer, you take on that task and you're able to do like both at the same time: design, prototype, build it, iterate, learn. And then obviously in the beginning, it's going to be really tough. You're going to fail a lot. But I think now is the best time to position yourself, not just as a designer, but as a design engineer or as a computational designer. That is really, really, I think, what the future is, because companies want, what they want is results, and they want fast prototyping and also like just execution. They just want, they want the end product. They want a good product. So if you're a designer who has the ideas, but can also execute it on their own and have something that's functional, but that is also thought of in terms of user empathy, in terms of like user workflow, and like the psychology of the users and the sales of it and the marketing and all the aesthetics and the functionality, and you will be a well-rounded designer. It will just completely change your workflow. So that's on one end. Now, to go back to why I think design is like so important now, and I like I mentioned, I talk to a lot of my engineer friends, and they're struggling to find jobs. I mean, everyone's struggling to find jobs. Like it's a recession right now, especially what's going on with the US. It's not easy for a lot of like international people out there. Even for us Canadians, it's rough. But you have to adapt, right? And it will, in times of recession, recessions have made the most billionaires. It has a lot. You can create a lot of opportunity if you can know how to position yourself. You just have to reinvent yourself, and find some loopholes and find some gaps in there, right? I think right now we can all argue that like AI can create some pretty, like some garbage, if I'm being honest. Like AI music, AI art, AI text, AI posts, blogs, whatever. Like humanity is becoming more and more aware of all the garbage and the trash and what's being generated by AI. So what's authentic now, or what really works? Stuff like this, like authentic conversations, real people, real humans, things that engage human relationships, human connections, meeting in the real world, authenticity, all that kind of stuff, right? And so what does that mean for designers? What that means is like all those skills that you've practiced, understanding the user, understanding empathy, understanding human psychology, understanding how the mind works, understanding like the tactile, like how your body interacts with the interface, like visualizations, aesthetics, functionality, um, you know, all those skills, or all those important disciplines are super important now. And before, you would only be good at that, and then you would be considered the dreamer, or you'd be considered the ideas person, but then, okay, let the engineer do it. I think for most of you guys, I don't know if you felt that way, but as a designer, I've always felt like designers are always, they like, for example, architects are called sometimes an engineer's worst nightmare. And understandable, because sometimes buildings that architects make or design are like really absurd and very funky, and very just extravagant, and then the engineer has to crunch the numbers and actually make it stand and work. And so I understand that on that end. But we need crazy ideas, we need good ideas. And it sucks when you see like the same products or the same ideas reinvented, or just being copied all the time, and copy pasted, and you see that on YouTube, like video contents, or startup ideas, or brands that they just copy each other. There's no novelty, there's no creativity. And I think with AI, it just increases that, because everyone can just replicate the same crap, So I think my prediction for the future is that most people will want ingenuity, innovation, new ideas, creative ideas, new perspectives, new ways of thinking about things, or seeing the world, or creating things that will benefit humanity, that will have high impact, that has never been done before. And designers are the best suited for that, because we are trained to critique everything, to always reinvent and think of things in a different way. It's not about optimizing. It's about dreaming and believing in something different. So it's never been a perfect time to be a designer, because when before you could only dream, and then you didn't have really the skills to execute and to build that dream, now you can. If, like I said, if you're willing to put in the effort to become a beginner again, obviously you don't need to be alone in this. By all means, call your friends, ask people who are in technical fields, or engineering, or in neuroscience, or biology and chemistry, if whatever product or thing you want to build, that crazy idea, like I usually narrow into digital software, but I think the best innovations come when you merge disciplines that don't really talk to each other. If you get, and that's what like MIT does really well, like the media lab. One of my favorite labs on campus is they take in artists. Like in one project, they will have an artist, a biologist, a chemist, a physicist, engineers, and designer, all working together to create whatever product it is, right? So that's where you find the innovation. And so for designers, you have to position yourself as this crazy ideas person, who will not just have the crazy ideas, but who will be able to execute it, and who is strategic enough to find the people to do that. So that's my message for today. I've kept it to 20 minutes. I won't go over that, but let me know what you think. If you agree with me, let me know. But I really wanted to touch on design today, because design is, close to my heart. There's always more to learn about design. It's such a fascinating field, honestly. Like, so you should expect some more videos on this channel. If you haven't subscribed, I noticed I saw my analytics, by the way, like yesterday, just get a refresh of who's listening, who's watching my videos. And I saw that 80% of you guys watch my videos, but are not subscribed, and only 20% or even lower are subscribed. So subscribe if you haven't. I had to plug this in at the end, just because, this is what I'm doing with this channel, is that I want to see it grow. And if you resonate, let me know. But if you're a designer, it's the best time to go all in, learn a ton, talk to people, collaborate, and don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone and learn about something you don't know, whether it's philosophy, psychology, physics, chemistry, just knowing a little bit about it, and then you'll find ideas that you can integrate into your own work, and then use AI. But don't use it to make garbage. Use it to really integrate to your workflow and like make things really happen. Don't just copy paste. Don't just plagiarize, and don't give like credits. Use different ones too, like Claude, ChatGPT, and like all these different tools. They think differently. They give you different responses. Their models are different. So be critical when you use AI. Yeah, that's my message. I hope you have a nice day. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Peace.